Hello and welcome to week 2 of public speaking class SPC 1017. Today we're going to talk about, this is our first, as you know, live broadcast to the class, and today we're going to talk about the week 2 video that you're going to do. It's a demonstration speech. You already did your introduction speech, and the final speech will be in week 4, which will be your persuasive speech. So today I'm going to go over what a demonstration speech is, what's required in the speech, and how to present those things. And I'm going to talk about organization, the elements of the speech, the topics, and how to find topics, which topics you should avoid, and little tips and tricks on how to do a demonstration speech. And then I'm going to talk about your extra credit opportunities. This is the first extra credit opportunity. Depending on how many people take me up on this one, I may do one in week 3, but I will definitely do one in week 4. So we'll see how things go. Just one note before I get started, I want to make sure that you understand that what I'm doing right now is more of a teaching session. This is not considered my version of a public speaking forum. So I don't want you to think that what I'm doing right now is something that you should copy, because I am going to be looking at notes. I don't necessarily want you to look at a lot of notes during your speech. You'll have a lot more time to prepare, and so that's just something to keep in mind. All right, so demonstration speech. Your demonstration speech is a how-to speech. This is going to tell the audience how to do something. And when you tell them how to do something, you're not just going to tell them, you're going to perform the actions. So that's something to keep in mind. The speech is supposed to be between 4 to 6 minutes, so about 5 minutes long. And one of the things that's really important in this speech that people don't tend to take into consideration all the time is that you don't necessarily have enough material just based on your demonstration to fill 5 minutes. So you may have to give some background information on why this is important to your audience, or the history of whatever it is that you're presenting. Maybe talk about some examples, some case studies, things that will fill the time. It's very easy when you're demonstrating something to have dead air. And as I said in the notes for the speech, beware of the dead air. You want to make sure that you're talking the whole time. This is a speech, so it's not just you showing them how to do something. It's not just a performance. So I need to hear you talking throughout. So if you're cooking something, then make sure you're telling us what you're doing, or giving us the background information, something, while you're doing it, not just silence, okay? So be really careful of beware of the dead air. Topics. Some places to look for topics. You'll see examples of demonstrations on the cooking channels, Food Network, DIY channels, or even in DIY magazines, HGTV, places like that. One of the places that a lot of people get topic information or topic ideas is Pinterest. So that's always a good place to find some topics. And I gave you some ideas of topics also in the description of the speech, so that should help you. There are a few things that you really need to avoid as far as topics, and I'll tell you the ones that you definitely should avoid, and then some that maybe are not the best choice, but if you can think of ways to get around the issues, then you can probably get away with it. Some things that you should avoid. Do not do a demonstration on how to give a massage. One of the things that is important about giving a massage, and when I talk about massage, I'm talking about your Swedish massage. I'm not talking about like sports therapy massage. That might be very different. But I'm talking about the Swedish relaxation type of massage. I've had somebody do this in the past. I've had several people do this in the past. And the last person who did it was silent almost the entire time, because when you're giving a massage, you are silent almost the entire time. And if you're not silent when you're giving a Swedish massage, then you're kind of going against the whole idea of the Swedish massage, which is to relax. So that doesn't work for a public speaking class. So massage is probably not your best idea, okay? I have had a couple people, with that being said, I've had a couple people give that speech that's been successful, and they've just done it in their living room and shown you the pressure points, and they've talked the entire time. So even though, a Swedish massage should be silent. Maybe they were performing more of a sports therapy massage, which doesn't necessarily need to be silent. The next thing that you should avoid is essential oils. This is a topic that is covered every semester, and I have been teaching this class for Everglades for about 5 years. I've taught the class for FAU and a couple other universities as well, and essential oils always seems to come up, and I can't tell you how easy it is to make essential oils. So when you're filling 5 minutes, these speeches almost always tend to be about 2 minutes long. So it's not really a good topic. Again, I'm sure there are ways that you could get around it, but I personally would recommend you avoid that topic. And the final one is a definite no-go. And every semester, even though I've been doing these live broadcasts and for the last 3 semesters, I think, and telling people do not do this topic, every semester somebody does this topic. And that is how to make a smoothie. Please, please do not tell me again how to make a smoothie. There are so many reasons, but just a few. Making a smoothie is very simple. There's not enough information to fill 5 minutes on how to make a smoothie. And it doesn't matter what kind of smoothie either, because I've had people talk about just flavorful fruit smoothies, and I've had people talk about green smoothies, and it still doesn't fill 5 minutes. But the biggest problem with the smoothie is that to make a smoothie, you have to use a blender. And if you don't believe me when I say a blender is the loudest thing to listen to through the internet, you should try it. Record yourself making a smoothie and then listen back to it. It's like sitting inside a jet engine. It's so loud to listen to a blender. I can't hear a word that you're saying, and there's really no way to avoid using the smoothie, because all there is to a smoothie is you just put stuff in, put it in the blender, and then drink it. So if you take out the blender portion, there's nothing. So don't choose how to make a smoothie. Please be the first class to not make a smoothie. I would really appreciate it. My earbuds would really appreciate it. So 3 topics I told you to avoid: massage, and essential oils, and how to make a smoothie. Another topic that comes up, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, is a pre-flight inspection. Obviously, we have a lot of aviation students at Everglades, so people like to do the pre-flight inspection. And it's a good topic. But usually when you're doing a pre-flight inspection, you're at an airport. And generally, it's loud at an airport. So you're going to need somebody to videotape you because you have to walk around the plane. So you're relying on another person who's not in the class, so they really don't have, you know, a lot of stake in the game. So that's a little risky. And if you have to stop for a plane to take off or land behind you, that can be difficult too. So it doesn't always not work. That wasn't very well put, but it can work, but it's not necessarily the best topic. So if you want to give it a try, feel free, but I'm just telling you the risks ahead of time, okay? The other issue with the pre-flight inspection and some of the other topics is that you do need 3 credible sources. And sometimes that's hard to factor in when you're wandering around a plane, and usually people will fall back on the same sources, which I wish I could remember what they are, but they are the FAA handbooks, and I probably sound like an idiot, I'm sorry, but I don't know those sources, but they're always the same ones. There's not a lot of different sources for a pre-flight inspection. So unless you're going to tell me about some kind of case study where things went wrong, you may have difficulty coming up with 3 credible sources. So on that topic, let's talk about 3 credible sources. Oh, and but before I move on to that, the funny thing as I'm talking to you is a few of you gave your speeches in swinging chairs like this, and you may notice me doing it now. So when I said in your notes, try to find a solid chair, this is why, because it's just natural to want to move in your chair, and it's distracting. So that was why I said use a solid chair. Research and 3 credible sources. Okay. So credible is really important because you have to state the 3 sources in your speech, and there's different ways of doing this, but the wrong way to do it is to bulk your sources. And what that means is saying I got my sources from Crayola and Faber-Castell and Adobe. You just listed the sources, but you didn't tell me what information you got from them. That clearly they weren't very valuable, and you didn't actually perform any research. At least that's not what you're presenting. So you need to present the information that you got from those sources, not just a list of sources. That's what I call bulking sources. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear, I think I gave you an example in your, where I put the information for the speech. And it was about Alton Brown. He was talking about how you should use a certain cheese. I think it was pepper jack. So a way of me using Alton Brown in a speech would be, I would be talking about making a grilled cheese sandwich, and I would say, according to Men's Health magazine, cheddar is the most popular cheese to use in a grilled cheese sandwich. But according to Chef Alton Brown from the Food Network, he likes to use pepper jack and Gruyere cheese in his grilled cheese sandwiches. I just stated two sources for you, Men's Health magazine and Alton Brown, and you know them both, right? I even told you the credibility of Alton Brown. I told you he is a chef and he's on the Food Network. He's not just any old guy. He's a chef, so he should know this topic, and he's on the Food Network, so that stands behind him and boosts his credibility. So I gave you two sources right there. That's how I want you to do it. You don't have to give them both in the same sentence like I did, but I want you to present the information from those sources. Likewise, I need you to tell me who the sources are. So don't just tell me Dr. Wendy Brown says skin cancer is on the rise in the US. I need to know who Dr. Wendy Brown is. I don't know who she is. So Dr. Wendy Brown from the American Academy of Pediatrics states that skin cancer is on the rise. Now I know that she's a credible source. She's not just somebody you found off the streets or your Aunt Wendy, you know, she's a credible source. When it comes to Wikipedia or blogs or anything that you find on the internet, if you don't know specifically who wrote it and you cannot tell me what their credibility on this topic is, don't use it. Most professors will tell you not to use Wikipedia, and Wikipedia is actually really good at going and checking all of the sources, but they don't check all of them and they don't check them immediately. So Wikipedia is not a good source for your information. It can be a good source for you to start your research. You can go to Wikipedia, read the information, scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, and you'll see where they got the information from. Click those links, and that's more credible. That's where you'll find more of your New York Times, Washington Post, all of the credible sources that researched the information and found it and you can use in your speech. Okay, so you have to have three credible sources. You don't bulk them. You also don't need to give me a website address. I don't need the whole website address. I just need the New York Times or Wendy Brown from the American Academy of Pediatrics. I don't need to know that you found it on this website and give me the whole email or website address. That's not necessary. Okay? If you have any questions about that, just let me know ahead of time so that you don't lose points for not doing it correctly. So I told you about, excuse me, I told you about what a demonstration speech is. I told you that it's going to be about 5 minutes long. I told you that you could look for topics in different places online or on your TV or even in magazines, Barnes & Noble, library. You could use the school library, you could use your home library. I'm not picky on where you find the information, just as long as the information that you find is credible and well presented. We talked about topics to avoid, and also we mentioned something about food, and that's a really common subject that people like to talk about, and it's a good one. As long as you give information, you don't have dead air, as long as you make sure that there is plenty for you to talk about. If you do decide to do something food related, try to think about how you're going to organize it and present it, because I can't sit and wait while the bread cooks for 20 minutes, right? So I need you to show me how to make it and then say, and here's what I made earlier, so that you can present the finished product. So I know what it's going to look like, but I'm not sitting there waiting for the bread to rise and all that good stuff. So just like when we were kids in England, they used to do this all the time. Here's one I made earlier. And they would pull out the little art project you were supposed to have made, you know, while they were showing you, okay? So make sure that you keep that in mind. Here's one I made earlier. Talked about sources, one I made earlier, dead air, visual aid. You need 3 credible sources in your speech, and you also need to use a visual aid. This is a really easy speech to use a visual aid in because you're going to be showing me things. And so whatever it is that you're working with is a visual aid. A few visual aids do not work on camera. And this is where it can be annoying that this class is online. There's some great things about taking this class online, and then there's some downfalls. Like the technology of it can be difficult for some people, and a visual aid can be kind of annoying because you're not allowed to edit your video. So you can't stop the video and put in a PowerPoint. And some of you are going to be really good at technology, so you could do that quite easily, but that doesn't work for this class. The reason it doesn't work is because we're supposed to be pretending that you're up on stage. And if you're up on stage, you can't stop your speech, run off stage, start something else, stop that, and come back. It doesn't work that way. So while you're up on stage, you would have to present something, right? And so you cannot stop the camera and edit your speech in any way. And every now and then somebody will try, and unfortunately it's really obvious. So don't try it, and just use an object. For example, if I was teaching you about photography, a how-to on something to do with photography, I would be showing you the camera and maybe walking you around the different elements in the camera, and the camera itself is my visual aid. Okay? Some things to not use as a visual aid. Some people have used animals and it's gone okay for them. Some people have used animals and it has not gone okay for them. So if you're not sure what your animal is going to do, don't use your animal. Do not use other people. Especially for some reason, people love to bring in their kids. And as much as I'd love to see your kids, it's not something that you wouldn't bring your child on stage when you're at a TED event, for example. So that's not a good idea. Another thing that you shouldn't use is written words. This is an example. If you use written words, you'll see that everything is shown as a mirror image. It says, example of a mirror image. So if you're showing me something, some notes that you took, I won't be able to see them. I once had a guy who was a pilot, and he was flying during the entire class, and he flew to somewhere remote. I don't remember where it was, Pakistan, I think. And he was in Pakistan, and he was in his hotel room, and he built a little helicopter out of straws. So be inventive. You can have fun with it, and the more inventive you are, the more engaged your audience is going to be. So try to think of ways that you can present something that's memorable to your audience. For example, I could have just used the ant that was crawling on my arm. I was doing gardening earlier. The ant decided to stay with me. So use a thing, not a written word. You can use charts. Sometimes people, again, like to show pressure points on a chart of the body. But keep in mind that the chart will be a mirror image too. So it'll be a little confusing to you, and you may need to practice when you're holding it up, because it's not going to look exactly the way that you look at it. Okay? And that brings me to my final point. So just to wrap up, what I've told you about so far is what a demonstration speech is, the time, where to look for topics, what topics to avoid, where to do research, and how to cite a source in your speech. While I'm on that, by the way, you don't have to, you can, if you want to, place your sources within the notes section when you submit your assignment, but you don't have to for this speech. You will have to for your persuasive speech, but not for this one. Okay, so you just have to tell me where they come from. As long as they're credible, and as long as I can Google them and find them, then you're fine. I talked to you about credible sources, I talked to you about topics to avoid, I talked to you about making one ahead of time, beware of dead air, using a visual aid, and organization. This is where your extra credit. Organization is really important in any speech. But in a demonstration speech, if you skip something, then my product is not going to turn out the way that you told me it would. So make sure that you are very organized. Make sure that you have all of the elements within your speech that you need. So you're going to need organization to start with your introduction. In your introduction, you're going to tell us who you are, what your name is, and you're going to tell us what you're about to tell us. Then you're going to tell us, and you're going to lay it out in sequential order, step 1, step 2, step 3. And then in your conclusion, you're going to wrap it up. You're going to tell us what you just told us. And then you'll say your goodbye, you'll wrap it up. Usually you try to wrap it up by stating something that you stated at the front. So if you start your speech off with a quote or a statistic or a reason why people should listen, then end it with something similar, okay? Because that wraps it up really neat and tidy, and people understand that. They have a very strong way of taking it home. They get it, and it sinks in, okay? So they're going to remember it. So you're going to start with your introduction. You're going to tell them what you're about to tell them in your introduction. That's a preview. Then you're going to tell them what you want to tell them, step 1, step 2, step 3. And then you're going to tell them what you just told them. So today I just told you step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay? This makes it really easy for your audience to remember everything that you're saying. It sounds very repetitive to you because you're practicing and you've heard it time and time again. But to your audience, they only hear it one time. If you don't tell them time and time again, remember, step 1, step 2, step 3, they're going to forget. Now, the entire time that I've been telling you these things that I've talked to you today about, I've recapped them consistently so that you remember them. Okay, so that way you don't have to go back and watch this video again and again to remember what it was. So organization is very important. Your extra credit assignment, should you choose to accept it, will be, I'm going to upload a template for an outline. It'll be a very basic outline. Next week we're going to do an in-depth outline, and this week I want you to practice by doing a basic template outline. I just need you to fill in some pieces so you know what you're going to say in each of the line items. Okay, and it's laid out in order. It's very basic. It doesn't have to be the entire thing that you're going to say. In fact, I would avoid writing everything that you're going to say, but just a little point to yourself, like, okay, I'm going to say, my name is Rebecca. I'm going to talk about my credibility. So I would put in here, professor of speech for 15 years. And then in my preview, I would say, actually, I'm going to talk about demonstration speech. So I would put in my template, step 1, sources. Step 2, credibility. Step 3, outline. And then in my main point, I might write a little bit more about what I would say about those things. But you don't have to write everything out, okay? Just basic pointers so that I can look at it and go, okay, so he did plan out the organization. They knew basically what they were going to say in each point, okay? That's going to help you stay on track. And that will help me to understand where you need help for next week for filling out your full outline. All right, so if you have any questions about that, let me tell you about the point system before I go. Sorry. So the point system is, if you fill out that outline, you're going to get extra credit points on this speech. So I will add, let's say you get 90% out of 100 for your speech. I will add a certain amount of credit points, and I'll put all of the information under week 1, so you'll get all of the information in writing, but I'll add those points to your speech. So you could go from a 90 to 100. So this could be really big. So if you have any questions at all, let me know. I will put more information about the extra credit into the week 1 assignment section. And only the people who have seen this video will understand what that extra credit is about. So hopefully everybody will watch it. If you have any questions, please let me know. You can either ask in the discussions, in the ask questions under discussions. You can email me, rbatisto@evergladesuniversity.edu, or you can call me, and you have my phone number. This video is always public, so I'm not going to put my phone number out there. You all have my phone number. You can call me on Saturday nights. I tend to be, or Saturday all day basically, and Sunday sometimes. I tend to be grading, so I may not be checking my email as much. So if you need me at that time, which is usually when people do need me, call me. It's much easier. That's everything for this week. I will be seeing you next week, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks, guys.